sometimes you just have to let people be mad.
Okay, let's go.
Welcome back, my angels, and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I'm Leanne, and on this channel, I help you take back your power. I help you embody your very own dream woman. Today, we're talking about the good girl, the part of us that softens our opinions, that says yes when we really want to say no, the part of us that manages everyone else's feelings above our own. And if you actually want to stop being the good girl, you have to start being honest, even when it makes other people uncomfortable. But here's the thing, I'm not going to give you tactics. I'm not going to give you scripts to memorize, because that's not what changes anything. What you actually need is to understand the psychology underneath. In this video, I'm going to cover why the good girl even exists. Second, we're going to break down what this is actually costing you, including some shocking research. Third, we're going to walk through how to actually stop, including a reframe that changed everything for me. And stay around to the end, because that last reframe is the one that most performing good girls never want to accept. And it's the one that actually frees you. The good girl. We all have her within. It's how we were raised and how we were conditioned as girls and as women. We're raised to appear pleasant to others, even when we're receiving something that's less than positive. We're praised when we show excessive amounts of empathy. And as we get older, this becomes softening your opinion, masking with forced smiles, inability to say no without feeling guilt and shame. Here's the thing that most women don't even realize. The good girl isn't a personality, it's a survival strategy. And that distinction is everything. Because if you think it's a personality, you'll think it's who you are, and you'll keep performing her even when it's quietly draining you. But if you realize that it's a coping mechanism, it's a strategy developed for a reason, then you can actually start to let it die. So let's talk about why we find the good girl part of us so hard to let go, even when it's not serving us. For most of human history, women who were too direct, too opinionated, too bold got punished socially, professionally, and sometimes quite literally. And our nervous systems are still wired for that. Even though most of us aren't living in that reality anymore, we still feel it within. And it feels like a life and death situation, even when it's absolutely not. And there's actually a really fascinating area of psychology that explains how this works. Most of us know about the 3 danger responses, right? When something dangerous happens and there's a threat to our lives, we respond by fight, flight, or freeze. But there's a 4th one that's not talked about nearly as much, especially when it comes to women, and that is fawning. Fawning was identified by a therapist called Pete Walker in his work on complex PTSD. And it's basically the appears to be safe response. And it essentially is when the brain receives a threat and fighting and fleeing are not an option, the nervous system learns to soothe to please the threat instead. And today we perceive the threat to be not being liked or approved of. So that fawning shows up as over-explaining the smallest of things, feeling guilty for whenever you have to say no, or playing the role that whoever you're interacting with is expecting from us. So why does this matter? Most of us think that we're just being nice, just being easy, just being a good person. What we don't realize is that our nervous system is in a low-grade state of threat almost constantly. The next thing we need to talk about is what she is actually costing us. Because honestly, most of us seriously underestimate this. The good girl can stop us from creating real friendships and relationships, because no one ever gets to see the real us underneath all our niceness. Here's where it gets even more real. There's another cost that women don't even think about, and that's our physical health. Physician Dr. Gabor Maté has done some really important work on this mind-body connection. He talks about how chronic self-suppression, so the act of constantly putting other people's needs before your own, shows up in the body, and it can show up as autoimmune diseases, as chronic illnesses, as anxiety, as burnout. And he says the cost of being too good for too long is something we pay for with our physical health. This is also supported by a book called The Body Keeps Score. It's by Bessel van der Kolk. And the whole foundation of his work is what we don't process in our emotions, the body holds on to. So suppressed emotion is never gone. It's stored. And over time, that surfaces into physical symptoms, into pain, into illness, into dis-ease. The body literally keeps a record of anything that we do not allow ourselves to process and feel. The good girl isn't just an emotional pattern in your emotional body. She's a nervous system pattern that literally affects your physical body. And honestly, we've all seen these women, the most kind-hearted, loving women who spend their entire lives giving and giving and giving, even through suffering. They were being the good girl. We're not doing this work just for us. We're doing it for them too. We're doing it for the generations behind us and the generations and the children ahead of us. Selfish women win. Selfish women win. When we do things that serve us first, we're happy, and naturally, everyone around us benefits, even if it doesn't seem like that immediately. If you're strict with yourself now, and if you put boundaries in place now, you will feel the ease later. And here's one thing I really want to address, because I think it's where a lot of us get stuck. And it's this fear that if you stop being the good girl, that people will perceive you as, or that you may become a narcissist. That standing up for yourself and saying no and choosing you and putting yourself first and being selfish somehow makes you narcissistic, self-centered, and cruel. Mina Fawn, who's a feminine life coach, who I love and absolutely recommend, says it perfectly. You can never be a narcissist. The fact that you're even worried about being a narcissist says it all. Narcissists don't lay awake at night wondering if they were too selfish. They don't agonize over whether they were too mean to someone or hurt someone's feelings. They don't do that. You do. You do all of those things constantly, which means, in fact, you are a genuinely kind person. You're a genuinely considerate person. And that is the exact reason why you need these boundaries in place. You need to protect yourself from people who have lower intentions with you, but also with people who are close to you who do not even realize that they're pushing your boundaries. Sometimes the kindest people in our lives can take it a step too far, can push our boundaries just a little bit too much. Not intentionally, not because they're mean, but because it's allowed. We just need to correct that allowance with teaching a new outcome. What does that mean? Someone asking you to take on more than you deeply feel you are okay with. Someone over communicating with you in a way that makes you feel uncomfortable. Someone requiring excessive amounts of empathy, but refusing to take action to get to a solution. Say no. Disappoint them. Stopping the good girl isn't a single one and done decision. It's a series of small, uncomfortable decisions of you being honest rather than being agreeable. And every single one of those moments will set off your nervous system. Your stomach will drop. Your body will tell you you're in danger. You'll often want to take it back, to soften it, to apologize. That's the fawn response trying to keep you safe. The work is staying. Letting that uncomfortable moment exist without rushing to fix it. Your no is so powerful. I want you to listen to this song by Tony Jones. It talks about the power of your no and the importance of it. You need to express your needs explicitly. Be assertive and be bold in stating what you genuinely require or how you actually feel. Acknowledge the anger that rises in you, the upset in a reaction to something. Acknowledge that it's there. Don't just try to skip over it. and appear cool and appear like, no, I'm fine, it's okay. Acknowledge the emotion so that it doesn't sit in you. That doesn't mean you have to be reactive, but it means you acknowledge what is happening within without trying to numb it and suppress it down. And actually, sometimes the saying no is saying no to ourselves, saying no to the habits that we're used to. When you start to overthink a text, no. When you start over-explaining, no. When you realize that your face is in appeasing mode when you're listening to someone, no. Say no often. Get comfortable with it. And then comes the next part. Because when you set that new outcome, the other person might be disappointed. They might go quiet. They might push back. They're not used to this side of you, to this version of you. That moment where you sit with their disappointment without fixing it is where the revolution happens. That's where the muscle starts working. Letting someone be slightly upset with you and not collapsing under the weight of it. And this is what I promised you at the start of the video. This reframe is a reframe that most performing good girls never want to accept. You have to choose your own self-respect over their good opinion of you. And I know that sounds extreme. I understand that's a very scary thought when we think about the reality of it, but stick with me. You honestly cannot live a full and honest life whilst also being the heroine of everyone else's story. Some people will be disappointed. Some people will be mad. And you have to be okay with that. Not because you're actually a bad person, but because you can't control how other people interpret you. You can only control whether you're honest with yourself. And here's the truth I want you to take from this video. The only validation that you need that you have a good heart is knowing your own intentions. That's it. You don't need everyone to agree that you're kind. You don't need everyone to like the choices that you make. You don't need to be cast as the savior in everyone else's story. You just need to know in your quiet moments that you're acting from a real place. That your boundaries are about protecting yourself and not about punishing them. If you know that, then you can let other people interpret you however they want. Their interpretation is theirs. Your truth is yours. This process is slow, yes. This process is uncomfortable, yes. But my gosh, will your future generations and your future self thank you. Let me know in the comments where the good girl shows up most for you. Let's talk. Until next time, my angels, I love you. I am rooting for you. And you really are her. Bye.